Easy Troop. In today's video, I want to explain to you the use of sidechaining. If you haven't heard what sidechaining is before, what it essentially is, you take one signal, something like a kick drum, and you use that to control another signal in terms of its overall level or gating effect. This can be a really useful mix tool to take one element and move another one out the way for a brief period. But we can be more nuanced with that. We can use it to ebb and flow other elements. We can use it to enhance other places as well. It's a far more versatile tool than kick comes in, bass ducks down. So let's get into that. Now the Moog and sub both go into a bus here called Reese. So if I solo that, you can see it takes the Moog and the sub. And we've got that right here. If I open up the Pro Q that is here on the Moog, we can see that these are the Moog harmonics and the red one there is my sub harmonic. So you can see that separation there. And they're just kept separate because on the Moog I can't generate just a clean sine wave. I have to drop everything down an octave, and that doesn't then give me the sound, so just reinforcing it by giving it its own sine wave there below it. On the Reese here, you can see I've got 3 different channels sidechaining. If we open up the first one, I use this FET compressor a lot. It's a noisy compressor. It adds sound and kind of grit and a bit of noise really into it when it does its sidechain. I like that effect. You might want to use something like the Platinum Digital up here, which is completely clean. So when we play this back at the minute, we can see that triggering, right? And if we go over into our sidechain and listen, we can hear it's being triggered by the clap or the snare, the noisy thing that I've made in this instance. So we can turn that on over here. So when that clap's hitting, it's pulling the bass back a little bit. That's cool, just dips it down by a couple of dB, about 3 decibels at the absolute peak here. And it does it very, very quickly. So it comes in 5 milliseconds and it's gone in 40 milliseconds. Could be even quicker, but you'll hear why I've come to those sort of timings as we go out throughout this session. Now this one should be tied into the kick, and look, this one takes a lot longer to go away, nearly 80 milliseconds, and that's because I really want you to get the full whack of the kick as it comes in. So let's just have the kick, the bass and the clap all together now. Now it's a really dirty kick in this track. I'll take the clap away. And you can hear how that pumps away at the bass and lets everything come through each time it hits, right? Now we can see as well, I've got 2 distinct values of how much it's ducking, because it's ducking based on how hard that kick hits. And they've got a difference of about 6 dB. Now check this out in the context of the mix and focus on that kick drum. I want you to hear how much it pops through, and then I'm just going to adjust the release timings and see how different that can be. Alright, so when the kick happens, everything moves away and it's nice and punchy in there in the mix, right? Now if I bring this release timing down to just 40, it's still there, but we don't hear the kick develop, we don't get its full body. If I make that even shorter, say 20, now the kick's starting to get masked in places, isn't it? We're aware of it, it's still there in the mix, but it's just like puff, puff, doesn't get through. So now we've got that context, I'm going to bring this up to like 80 and listen to how it changes. So much of impact on the kick and being able to hear it and how it develops and it being present. We know before we can still hear the kick, it's like, okay, there's a kick there. Whereas now we get the feeling and the body of the kick just by adding milliseconds into the way it's sidechained. Now, there's another thing that's happening here with the bass and the reason that relationship works so well. Let me show you now the Pro MB, which comes after those two. What? Yeah, I'm actually really lifting up the top end of the Reese here using Pro MB. However, watch what happens when we play back. Can you see what's happening here? So that ebb and flow, when the kick comes in, it takes that top end a little bit away that's really enhanced on the Reese. And even when the kick comes in, it pulls it back a little bit. The whole thing's ebb and flowing, but it's doing it in that we're taking 6 dB away from the low end when the kick comes in. Here mostly gets left alone, and this gets pulled back just a little bit. So it ebbs and flows. Instead of the whole signal going bash down, it kind of brings it down in ebbs and flows and gives it some dynamic movement that's kind of exciting. Let's have it so we've just got the break and just the Reese. Let's have it so we've just got the break and just the Reese, so we can really get an understanding of what's going on and how it ebbs and flows with everything else. These 4 bars I'm going to loop around now, there's lots of slides and movement in the Reese, so it shows up a lot nicer. So let's have a listen to this. We'll have it with Pro MB off, and then we'll bring it in, and you can hear that ebb and flow and movement that's generated in rhythm with the drums that are happening, which is the really important part to me. I really hope you can hear that as much as I can. It's not so much like, it's not a musical change, it's a change in the feel and the rhythm overall. You know, it's that Reese can really have its top end thrown up, but only when it's allowed, only when there's space for it to do so. When there's the clap in or the kick in, it's not allowed to do it. And that means on those little slide ups, when it's sliding and then it allows itself to open up, it just really adds like this wavy ebb and flow to the whole thing. And you know, that's taking it a lot further than kick hits, bass goes down, even though we are looking at a bass. Now let's check out some other things that we can do as well. Within the break itself, I've got side chaining happening. So if we take just the break that I've built here, and it's not an overly complex break, but let's take this ending section here. Within this itself, there's a couple of things going on. There's this cymbal loop. If I say loop, it's a bunch of samples chopped up to do this kind of kung thing. And there's also the classic think break in there, chopped up into a different rhythm for this track. Both of these are sidechained. First thing, the Pro Q4 here, sidechained on the think break. And you can see here it's for the clap. And we're just taking away some of the body and area in the think break when the clap comes in. Just box the area here. We want that clap to cut through and have that space, so I'm just letting it move it down in those moments when it needs to. But as well with the think, I'm ducking it much like I was with the Reese as well. It's been slammed down a huge amount, but it's been let go over the 40 milliseconds. And the same with the kick. So really that like ebb and flow of the think break is only allowed in there when there's space. I want the kick and the clap to have the priority, and it gets to fill the space in between. If we take it off, the break's just there constantly, it fills in the space fine. But I want them to have like a punchy and a cut through priority in this case. I don't want that top line there all the time. I want it to ebb and flow, but only when it's got the space to do so. So it makes the kick and clap so much more impactful, doesn't it? I've got the same principle on the cymbal loop over here with the kick. And it lets it go da 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 da, ebb and flow a little bit more with the kick, so it's got a constant rhythm to it. Let's take those side chains away, the whole lot, even the Pro Q. It's really static, not great ebbing and flowing break now, is it? Bring them all back in. It's a whole different thing, isn't it? So we've got that, and then this break that already has that big ebb and flow and movement is the thing that controls the Reese and allows that ebb and flow and that lift up. Let's take away all of those side chaining options in the break and the Reese and listen to just how static and flat and boring it is. So much more like movement, ebb and flow, and like it's kind of live and being played, but it's also giving space for all those individual elements to have their very brief moment to shine, right? Let's take a look at the pads here. The pads fill out quite a bit of space, and I use them at times such as the intro section here, where I want them to be full and have lots of space, but I want that same like feeling of the music, that same tonality later in the track when it's a lot busier, like when we come into here, but I need them out of the way. So again, I'm using side chaining on both of the channel and the buses. So I've got what's called aux 2 pads here. And really it's bringing all these elements together. Alright, so I'm having some control there. Again, kick takes out loads of it when it hits hard, almost 10 dB, get it completely out of the way. And for a long time here, look, 140 milliseconds in this instance, because I need that kick to punch through, and it's going to dip everything else a little bit to give it a bit of space, but I want this to recover back in slowly. This fills up a big space and spectrum, right? If we put an EQ on here, you can see this is filling up all of our mid-range. If it suddenly goes out and boop back in, we hear that, right? That whole big sweeping in. We bring it in gradually, 140 milliseconds, take it down, bring it in a little bit, bring it in a little bit. It sounds a lot nicer. And you can hear that happening right here. If we do it quickly, it's a little weird, it feels jarring, and it will feel jarring even in the whole mix of context. We can be ridiculous with it. Really like bring it back in slowly. Then the music's almost too fast for that. So up at like 180 is where I've settled. Can push it up into the 200s pretty comfortably, I reckon. That brings it back in naturally with, you know, almost in sync with the sounds, right? Now as well on here, I've got Pro Q. And Pro Q is working with the clap, and it's just ducking out those mid ranges right where the clap sits again, just for those briefest of moments. And if we have a look at the settings here, it's a real fast attack, a clap, really fast impacting sound. And we let this go back a little bit quicker because it's already still sweeping back up from the kick. So let's have this in context with the break. So here we go without any of its sidechain. And completely fine. Everything sits pretty well, but we get so much better separation of movement when we do this. Now in context of the whole track, it's arguably a little bit busy. We need it to get out of the way in moments, so. So there we are, there is some of the hidden power of sidechain beyond the classic stick it on the kick and stick it on the bass to get them out of the way. There's so much more you can do with it. And this is just the things I'm showing you in this example. This might hopefully have given you some ideas for some of your music. What I'm going to do now is just let the track play out. Thank you very much to the sponsor of the video, which is DistroKid. If you want to get your music like this out to all of those major distribution platforms, check out the link below for a discount off your first year off of DistroKid, which is how I release all of my music. I'll let you have a listen to this work in progress. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.